I'm Jamie Seeker, and this is What It Takes. Each episode, I sit down with real business owners to talk about their journey, the wins, the challenges, and everything in between. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome back to What It Takes. I am your host, Jamie Seeker, and today we're diving into what it really means to lead across cultures, continents, and companies. Our guest today is someone whose story truly stands out, not just for what he's accomplished, but for where he's done it. I'm talking to Miguel Adao, the CEO of Voler Systems, a fast-growing engineering firm based right in Sunnyvale, California. Miguel's journey started in Portugal, and from there, he's lived and worked in 8 different countries, picked up 5 languages, and built an incredible career leading marketing at some of the world's biggest brands. Think Hewlett Packard, think VMware, think Procter and Gamble and Pepsi, and beyond the big names, he's helped lead similar companies all the way to IPO. What struck me the most when getting to know Miguel is how deeply his international experience has shaped the way he leads and the way he sees people, business, and growth. So today we're going to unpack the lessons that he's learned along the way and hear how he's bringing that global perspective to Voler Systems. So let's get into it. Hello, Miguel.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much for that nice introduction. Delighted to be here.
Well, let's just talk about where you've lived, first of all. I think that's really notable and, may not be the determining factor in everything, but I think it is, they are factors to sure. And so you've lived in 8 different companies or 8 different countries. And how do you think that global experience has shaped your leadership style?
It's such a great question. It's something that I think about often as I have 2 teenage children, and I think about the opportunities that I'm providing to them in terms of traveling the world and being exposed to different cultures, just like my parents did the same with me. As you said in your intro, I was born and raised in Portugal, but I left when I was 12, went to high school in Rome, in Italy, one of the great cities of the world. And throughout my life, I've lived in London, in Paris, in Buenos Aires, in Rio de Janeiro. Now I'm living in San Diego. My company's up in Sunnyvale in the Bay Area, but I live in Southern California. And yeah, other than the beauty of experiencing and exploring the world, certainly from a professional standpoint, what that does, I think, is it allows you to be adaptable and agile and understand that not everybody sees the world the same way you do. Certainly, there's languages and cultural aspects, but also just ways of doing business. It's very different in Europe compared to Latin America or Asia or North America. And so it has given me mostly an ability to understand and appreciate and empathize. And my wife will tell you, empathy is not my strongest suit, but certainly moving around and traveling and exploring different countries and cultures and languages, it's given me a chance to become a bit more empathetic too.
Do you have a moment that that you can think of in business, maybe like it has to do with cultural understanding, but like it really changed the outcome of a situation. Is there something that comes to mind where you're like, this kind of helped build my empathy there?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I love this. I love the fact that you and I did not rehearse any questions and answers. We don't have any seated, scripted thing. We're totally ad-libbing here. So I'm thinking on the spot as you ask, as we do these 15, 20 minutes together. Certainly, when I was at HP, you mentioned Hewlett Packard. I spent 12 years there across 3 different countries. And it was funny because initially I had an international role and I was dealing with countries like Israel and the Netherlands, where folks are very direct because of culture, because of history of those countries. When you think about where Israel is located in the world and also the Dutch mentality, it's very interesting. Those 2 countries in particular come to mind because at first, what I interpreted as perhaps overly aggressive, bordering on the rude, it's not. They're just cultures where you get to the point quickly. Whereas in some other cultures, you think of some Asian countries, for instance, where folks don't like to say the word no. So they will perhaps use different body language and different verbal cues to have a negotiation. You walk away thinking, that's it, it's in the bag. They're going to buy our product or our service. That's not at all what they said. They just didn't say no because it's different. So you certainly learn to appreciate where folks are coming from their histories, personal and national and historical, and that gives you a better sense of how to engage with different folks. Now, even in the same country or the same cultural group, you'll have different personalities, right? And I've learned through time, for a long time, you can tell by my body language, right? I'm very passionate and high energy. And for a long time, I thought you have to have that high energy. I want to see that from my team. I've learned through the years that actually it's the more introverted and quiet folks in a team or in a department or in an organization that actually sometimes have the best ideas and the most passion about what they're doing. Just because they're not rah, rah, rah does not mean they're not at all committed or engaged. Could be the opposite. So this could be a cultural thing, could also be a personality thing as well. And I've learned through the years to appreciate that. I was not very good at the beginning of my career, but I've certainly become much more aware of that. Not everybody needs to be like me. Not everybody needs to think or act or behave. In fact, it's better that you have different points of view, different walks of life, and different ways of seeing a problem or a solution or a process, because you get a better outcome out of it.
That's a really good perspective to have, and one that we actually share in that I think a lot of us tend to gravitate toward those that are like us.
Yeah.
We see a lot of similarities, but when I'm looking at successful companies and businesses and teams, a lot of them have balancing personalities, like they fill in each other's gaps. So I love that you said that about that. How do leadership expectations vary across countries that you've worked in? Were there any like surprising differences? I mean, you kind of mentioned a few with like the Asian countries, and then like, I definitely have had experience with the Dutch, and they are very direct, and you're like, "Oh, did you just say okay?" And I kind of appreciate that. Like, "Oh, hey, like, I don't there's no guessing really there." But were there any that kind of surprised you?
It's interesting because, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, certainly I love the North American, the US kind of mentality. And it's always tough to stereotype, right? To generalize, because there are bad companies and good companies everywhere. There are bad people and good people everywhere. There's good and bad leadership everywhere. But certainly I appreciate, and that's why this country, and certainly Silicon Valley, where I work most of my time, it attracts so many um, in, innovative and passionate folks from all over the world, because there's something unique about this drive towards accomplishing something, um, towards taking risks, high risk, high rewards. So there's an appetite that I appreciated, certainly in the US and in Silicon Valley in particular, where I've been operating in the last few years, for a certain degree. Yes, we can make mistakes, but fail and fail fast. Some countries, it's taboo to fail or to admit
Yeah.
that you fail, where hierarchies or seniority or certain written and unwritten rules and protocols are so etched in stone that you cannot violate or diverge from that. I do like the of all the countries, and as you said, I've lived and worked in 8 countries. In US, and particularly in California, where I've spent the last 10 years, I really feel like it's a winning formula for taking risks, for compensating and encouraging and rewarding folks who are out there um, discovering new cures for Parkinson's, or trying to solve global warming. I work in a company that provides um, engineering services for medical device companies, for wearable companies, for industrial organizations. And it's kind of cliche and it's kind of a little touchy-feely, but it's so rewarding to be able to wake up and to think that you're actually working towards something that will make human beings and the planet and communities better. And so, back to your original question, that's my biggest takeaway. This is still the best place that I've experienced in order of accomplishing something unique. Now, you have great innovation and great leadership and great organizations coming out of everywhere. But I have found that this is the place where all the different factors combine for a really tremendous perfect storm in in a good way.
Oh, that's actually really cool to hear. I love that. But you kind of mentioned too that you guys are in medical devices. So you're the CEO of Voler Systems. What does it look like to bring your global mindset, like having such a vast, well-rounded perspective? How do you bring that into this California-based innovation company that is a very, I mean, that especially if anybody knows Silicon Valley, like that's such a very specific mindset and culture and all that kind of stuff. How do you bring that well-roundedness and your perspective into this type of environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something I think about often in my career in conversations with folks that we might be hiring or just with colleagues or friends. I've worked, like you said, Pepsi Cola, Procter and Gamble. I've worked for Cigna Healthcare in insurance. I've worked for Hewlett Packard in technology, and I worked for Petco, the retailer, and very often in marketing and business development roles. And what I found through the years, I've been in business for 32 years, is that actually the product or service you sell is almost immaterial. Of course, you're in there to make money and to grow and grow profitably, but it's really about ultimately, I come from a marketing standpoint, whether you're dealing in a B2C, business to consumer environment, or a B2B, business to business, you are telling a story and you're weaving a narrative where you want to move somebody from just awareness of whatever it is that you sell, the widget, which could be a product or a service, move them from awareness to consideration to preference and ultimately to purchase. That's it. And you're telling a story like Disney does. It's three chapters of the story or whatever, and there's a villain, which might be competitors or headwinds in the market, whatever, and there's a hero. Ideally, it's your product and it's your solution, and you tell that story in a way that's compelling. I believe that ultimately, whether you're selling to a large Fortune 50 company or you're selling to a mom and pop store or you're selling to an individual, it's really, you need to connect on the emotional level. The rational side comes later. The dollars and cents, the benefits of this product, the time to get your return on investment, all of that will come. But it's on the emotional, on the visceral level that ultimately you make progress. And so I find that my experience in uh, B2C companies like Procter and Gamble, where I launched Pantene and Pert Plus in Brazil and Argentina many, many moons ago, or Pepsi, where I ran the 7 Up and the flavors, the non-cola brands in Brazil as well. What I learned in those years back in the 90s, they really still apply today because I can still get in front of an audience of investors, of customers, of partners or prospects, and I can tell that story. This is how we can help. This is how Voler Systems, with our engineering prowess, can help you get from A to B and bring your delightful product to market faster and within budget and in a way that's easy to manufacture. And so you connect at that emotional level, you bring them on that journey, and everything becomes easier. So every job, every step in my career has kind of given me the ability to navigate what is indeed, like you said, a very niche, very technical, very specific space. At the end of the day, you learn about those technicalities, but 90% of it is all about human connection.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, I was our on our podcast last week, we were just talking about the story, and everybody has the story, and it's finding your story and being able to promote that out there. So I love that you said that and kind of reiterated the themes that we were already discussing on this show. But you've also, I mean, that was a really good point. You've led both B2C and B2B companies like HP and Pepsi. What do you think, you were talking a little bit about marketing there, but what do you think the biggest leadership challenge is across those industries, especially globally?
Yeah, certainly I find there very interesting challenges when you're working for a large multinational. Right now, I work in a very much smaller company where I have different benefits versus the large uh, Pepsis and HPs and VMwares of the world. But there's also there's some benefits and also some cons. I would say in a big company, you have more resources. Obviously, it goes without saying, more money for marketing and sales efforts. You have more people in your team. You have teams that are there to help you in legal and accounting and reporting and marketing intelligence. When you're in a small organization, like I imagine many of your listeners, uh, it's a one or a two man and woman group, right? It's small teams wearing multiple hats where you have to be the CMO and the CFO and the legal expert. It becomes trickier in small organizations. I don't think there's that many differences between a B2B and a B2C when they're large. They have their own benefits of their size. I think it has more to do with the difference between a large and a small company. But if I can talk a little bit about B2B and B2C, it's easier to connect, I believe. I was telling about that emotional sale, that emotional story. In B2C, that's easier to do it because you're essentially talking to whether it's teenagers or moms or families, or you're and you see it on TV all the time. All the commercials during the Super Bowl halftime, they're trying to connect using celebrities and humor and maybe some drama to connect on that emotional level. When you're dealing B2B, and that's why you don't see B2B commercials on TV, because those audiences are, you're spending too much money to reach just specific target audiences. But there, the conversation doesn't need to be much more rational in terms of the financials, in terms of the ROIs, or in terms of the benefits of the solution. Um, I still believe they can bring so much. I'm glad I started my career in B2C. You can bring so much of that, again, storytelling, the narrative, the emotional connection to the B2B side. And even if you're dealing with CIO or a CEO of a large business to business organization, you can certainly weave in these elements again of the, the, the the emotional connection, the visceral value that this partnership or this solution can provide their customers.
Yeah, and I think that's also kind of been another theme that's been weaving through my conversations as of lately, the last couple of weeks, is how surprisingly, relationships with other businesses and business partners, whether they're your clients or customers or vendors or people that you work with, it's those relationships with those people in those companies are what kind of carry you through the downtimes. And one of the things that are certainly going to happen is the economy is going to go up, it's going to go down, you're going to face challenges, you're going to be in high highs and low lows, but the people around you in the low lows are people that you have made those connections with. So I think that that's like a really, really great point, and something that has been kind of resonating with me lately in a lot of these different conversations. So it's cool to hear your perspective on that too, even at like a bigger level, like when it comes to even marketing or anything like that, you kind of take that concept of we're all relational at the end of the day. And yeah, we may need to speak to it in different ways when we have, B2C customers. That's much, much easier to talk to get to that emotion or whatever. But we're really looking for that in B2C as well. And I'm seeing that to be true as a service provider and also working with our clients who are also connecting with them. We're seeing it kind of all around. So I think that's really great. And this leads us to our signature question on the podcast. In your own words, perspective, experience, we're called What It Takes, and we want to talk about what does it take to sit in that seat, to be that business owner, to be that decision maker, to carry that weight on your shoulders. What do you see there?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. I think two words come to mind more than anything else. It's great if you have some sort of education. It's great if you had some mentorship, especially early in a career, but also later. It's great if you have somebody that helped you open doors. And there's no doubt that there's a large chunk of the population, either here or abroad, that simply doesn't have the same opportunities and the same introductions and the same, shall I say, privileges that many other folks do. But that notwithstanding, there's a lot that we can control ourselves, even if there's a lot of outside factors. And I think the two words that come to mind the most are perseverance and passion. I believe that you said The highs will be high, the lows will be low. We're going through all kinds of craziness in the market right now. We're seeing every time we open the paper. But regardless of things that are again outside of our control, there's a lot we can control. We can certainly control our mindset and our perseverance, our grit, our determination to keep fighting every day. And some days are tough, but every day, just keep fighting for the good fight. And I think that more than anything else, as um, carried me through my career, which by the way has been a lot of zigzags. It has not been linear upward all the time. It's been lateral. It's fallen back. It's gone this way, and then it paused for a while, and then it went the other complete way. And those are the most interesting careers that I've seen where it's not all in one highway. It's a lot of detours, a lot of stops, and a lot of um, changes in course. But if you're perseverance, if you stick with it, if you have belief, and if you're passionate, you have to be passionate about something. Otherwise, when the alarm goes off at 6 in the morning or whenever it goes, it's going to be a long day. So you have to be, you have to love what you do. You have to love people because indeed, as we said, you're basically people engage with people. It's not companies with non-entities. It's human beings engaging with each other. And so perseverance and passion and have curiosity, have the humility to always think that you can learn more. I've learned already a lot from listening to you and following your podcast and your website. And I'm always one day, I always say, one day that I go by that I don't learn something from someone with kind of a wasted day. And so have curiosity and humility to learn and have passion. And so that's a lot of themes, but two general themes: passion, enthusiasm, energy, perseverance, and curiosity and humility to always want to continue to improve.
Wow, that's so great. And I think too, what you said from that is that there will be external factors, and we're not saying that those things don't make a difference because they truly do. Whether you have the privilege of being in a circumstance or not, maybe you have to work a little harder. But the things that you can control and the choices that you can make to be persistent, to keep on going, to have that perseverance, to have that passion about what it is that you're doing, those are the things that are no one else, no other outside factor can ever impact that. So, Miguel, hearing your story, it just reminds me that leadership is about more than just titles or achievements. I mean, you certainly have them, but it's really about perspective. It's about being open to other cultures. It's about being willing to adapt, to keep learning, like you said, every day, being curious enough to keep learning no matter where you are in the world. And Miguel's path, listeners, I mean, he went from Portugal to Pepsi, from HP to leading a thriving engineering firm now in California. It's just proof that when you lead with purpose and global awareness, there really are no borders. And so thank you so much for hanging out with us on What It Takes. If you love this episode or you want to get in touch with Miguel or learn more about Voler Systems, Miguel, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Miguel Adao, Miguel Adao. Voler Systems is the name of our company, Voler. The company has been around for 45 years. Our founder is still with us, and he's my mentor, my chairman, and my greatest partner in crime at this company. And so you can find Voler Systems, oneword.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to engage if I can help you. If you happen to know somebody who might need some engineering design support with their medical devices or industrial devices, that's what we do: hardware, firmware, and software. But outside of that, I'm also always willing to help somebody with another point of view. I mentor several people. I sit on several advisory boards, and I teach here in University of California, San Diego. And so, yeah, I would love to be able to help some of your listeners if I can as well. I
Oh,
believe in paying
thanks.
it forward because it comes back tenfold.
It sure does. And thank you so much, Miguel. And we'll also put that information in our show notes. So, reach out. People are not always so accessible. And I love that about you. And he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience. So if you like this episode too, please make sure to just subscribe, leave a review, share it with somebody who's ready to lead with the heart and also without borders. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on What It Takes.
Take care.
Would you or someone you know like to be featured on this podcast? Our applications are now open. Apply today at seekersolution.com and click on the podcast link to get started.